Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. Second hour of the program. We are with you until noon. We're going to begin this second hour of the program discussing Canada's proposed Online Harms Act. It will create new obligations for online platforms, live streaming, and adult content services. The legislation also proposes the creation of a new Digital Safety Commission to enforce the new regulations and a new Digital Safety Ombudsperson to enhance public awareness about the ills of the online world. Not everyone is in agreement with the proposed legislation. It's been called Orwellian, and I want to talk further on that side of things. We go now to Lawrence M. Krauss, president of the Origins Project Foundation and author, most recently, of the book The Edge of Knowledge. Lawrence, welcome back to the program.
It's good to be back with you.
You are one of many that are saying, whoa, let's hold on a second here, that the proposed Online Harms Act goes too far in regulating speech and the type of things we can say. Why don't you tell our listeners here, when I hear it's Orwellian or it's even worse than Orwell, you have my attention. Give us your take.
Well, yeah, it is in many ways worse than Orwell. There's actually nothing good about it that I can find. But the main thing is it does create this commission, this extra legal commission, and it allows people to be fined and accused of fomenting or encouraging hate without defining, of course, what that is in any way. But the worst part, so that's the first part. Defining hate is a difficult thing, and allowing some extra legal commission to decide one day what is hate and one day what isn't, without any legal protections of anyone involved, is a real worry. Second, what it does is it puts the onus on people that are not only accused, but it encourages people to accuse, because if you accuse someone, then the defendant would have to pay you up to $20,000 for each complaint, as well as paying $50,000 to the government for a violation. So you can imagine there's no downside to making a complaint, and every possibility of getting $20,000. And even if you're found innocent of that, all the onus is on you to spend money and with lawyers and everything else defending against that complaint. If that wasn't bad enough, and that's pretty darn bad, for obvious reasons, it sets things up for abuse in so many ways. And once again, when it comes to determining if you have to pay that $20,000, it's going to be this set of government bureaucrats who have you have no recourse against them in any legal proceedings. It's extra legal. It doesn't have the protections of due process and burden of proof, et cetera, et cetera. But then it's even worse. And this is the Orwellian part of it. If a complaint is made that someone thinks you're likely to have hate speech, you've never actually said it online, but they think you're likely to do it, the government can basically put you under house arrest and take away your right to use your social media or electronic devices. It's like that movie. I forget the name.
Minority
of it,
Report.
Fiction.
Minority
Report. Exactly. Yeah. That is terrifying. Now, having said all of that, those are the logistic and practical reasons that this is horrible legislation, which should not be allowed to be implemented.
So, Lawrence,
but beyond that,
I just want to say, I hear from people, okay, that they hear these arguments and they say, no, it can't actually be that bad. It can't actually say what you say. It says.
Read the legislation. Read the proposed legislation. It says explicitly what I said. But even if those worrisome aspects were not there, I would argue that there is an extreme, more deep philosophical worry that any democratic society, any free society should have about regulating hate speech. Namely, why should you not be allowed to hate? Why should you not be allowed to criticize? There are already legal protections against inciting people to harm someone, to encourage harm or violence against an individual. Clearly, that's the kind of speech that needs to be regulated, and you have to protect people. But saying that you hate someone, or even more innocuous, saying you hate an idea, should not be illegal in any way. First of all, the speech you least want to regulate is speech you don't like, because the whole point of free speech is to allow speech that you don't like, not the speech that you like, which is going to happen because someone saying something that is unpopular, well, requires some courage, and maybe you should listen to that to see if you're wrong. It could be nonsense, and then you can argue about why it's nonsense. But and then the final thing that I argued about in the piece I just wrote, which is probably going to strike people as, well, hit some people the wrong way, but that's the whole point of free speech, is if you're really talking about hate, let's look at the scriptures of the world's major religions. And in there's a tremendous amount of hate speech. So, as I pointed out, should I be able to get $20,000 every week by arguing that what's said in synagogues, churches, and mosques around the country is hate speech? That. And instead, what's likely to happen is if you condemn, say, the extreme Islamic fundamentalism and extremism, you're likely to be declared as having Islamophobia, and you're more likely to be the subject of such an investigation instead of the people who might be promoting the actual hate. So it's going to be very. So anyway, that's the general context.
Well, listen. I mean, this country does have a special exemption to its hate speech laws for religious speech, right? I mean, that is in the books, and the leader of the Bloc Québécois has been on this program a couple of times because he's the one advocating to remove that exemption for religious speech. But that is in place. So Lawrence, I guess it comes down to, the federal government says, well, we need to protect children, right? Because a lot of this Online Harms Act, they say their aim is to protect the targeting of children that's happening on social media platforms. Very hard to argue against protecting the children. And then, of course, you ask people the question, do you like hate speech? 99% of people will say, no, I hate hate speech. That's what you'd probably get from people, right? So they're going after things that are absolutely unpopular, right? Targeting children and hating people. So do you think that they're using that as...
Things often sound good, and the best intentions are the road to hell is paved with them. And I think you're right. Look, no one can argue against, in principle, protecting children, but saying you're protecting children and actually doing it are two different things. And of course, there's been a recent book by a friend and colleague of mine about the fact that being concerned about young kids having smartphones and whether we coddle children too much out in real life and not enough online. And so I think it's worthwhile exploring that. But once again, if you're protecting them, you always have to ask the question, who is doing the protecting and what are they doing the protecting from? Who is deciding what's harmful? Who is deciding what's hateful? And ultimately, you should be concerned if it's a group of people who are basically insulated, who decide in advance what is harmful and what isn't for your children, and or what is hateful speech and what is protected speech or what is kind speech. And so you always have to ask, if you were the person that was writing something online, would you be happy? Who would you like to decide what you should say? And I think on the whole, most people would be very hesitant to think about, some random individual being deciding what they can say. So there's no doubt that that children need to be protected at some level, but we have to be extremely careful about civil liberties, and ultimately in a democratic society, a society of laws, the people who should be deciding what is ultimately the necessary protection for children should not be a group of government bureaucrats, but should be the legal system.
Okay, so let's get to that, because I'm wondering what should be the way a democratic, free, progressive society deals with issues like hate.
Well, look, I mean, I think that ultimately you should have legislators who define laws that are well defined, where things that are illegal are explicitly described as being illegal, and then are subject to review by the Supreme Court. I mean, that's just the standard way. That's how we have civil liberties and protections. And I have to say, of course, having moved back to Canada from the United States, I'm more aware that there are many more protections in the United States in principle, in spite of all its problems, and it has many. protections of civil liberties than there are here in Canada. But that's why we have to be even more careful, I think, in Canada, that we don't abuse civil liberties. So, I'm not going to say that I'm the one who should decide and has a perfect solution for how to protect children. But if I'm going to make legislation, I should make it quite explicit and explicitly subject to legal rulings of people like the Supreme Court, and not just create a commission an extra legal commission. I think that's one of. I mean, obviously, as I've described it, that's one of my concerns. But the question is, look, if you start saying what harms children, and it's happening in the United States, you're seeing librarians and people deciding on the basis of political correctness that Roald Dahl's books have to be taken, or Dr. Seuss has to be edited because it's harmful to children. And whenever you have that kind of book burning mentality, I worry about it a lot.
Lawrence, got to leave it there. That's the time we have for this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure, as always. Hope to come back again.
Absolutely. Lawrence M. Krauss right there. His latest piece is entitled The Freedom to Hate, and it takes a look at the proposed Online Harms Act.